Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It is 7:07. Good morning. It's O'Connor and Company on this Monday. It's holiday, by the way. Coming up at 8:05, Jonathan Alexander, Legislative Counsel of the Maryland Family Institute, talking about a bill called the Keep Charities Nonpartisan Act. Tries to stop charitable organizations from participating in political campaigns, would allow the state of Maryland to be authorized to impose civil fines and revoke tax-exempt status from churches and religious nonprofits who break the law. It's a direct violation of First Amendment rights. But they want just one-sided conversations in the state of Maryland. That's how they roll. And so they're targeting groups like the Maryland Family Institute. We'll talk to Jonathan Alexander at 8:05 about that. It's Larry O'Connor with Bethany Mandel joining us this morning. Good morning, Bethany.
Good morning. Are you getting sick of me yet? It's been a lot of time with Bethany Mandel lately.
I could never get sick of you, Bethany, ever.
That's how I know you're lying.
Joe DIGENOVA is our guest. Former U.S. Attorney to the District of Columbia. A happy President's Day to you, Joe. I got to think Reagan is your favorite, considering he made you the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, but I don't want to extend myself. Maybe you're a Millard Fillmore man. Who you got on President's Day?
No, I'm a Reagan guy and a George Washington guy because I was born on February 22nd. So I'm really a Washington Reagan guy.
There you go. Nice. So, listen, so much to get to with you. I want to start with the SAVE Act because there does seem to be momentum now. Susan Collins, who's running for re-election in Maine, signed on to support it. They've now got, I think, 48 co-sponsors and 50 total Republicans, a holdout with Mitch McConnell and Lisa Murkowski. No surprise there. But if they wanted to, they could blow away the filibuster and get this thing through, which would force proof of citizenship to register to vote and then photo ID to vote. What do you think the odds are? And do you think it's a good idea to blow away the filibuster for this?
Well, on the last question, the answer is yes. I would get rid of the filibuster because the Democrats are going to do it as soon as they take over the Senate. They tried to do it before and they failed because of a couple of serious Democrats. But those days are gone. I would get rid of it. I'd pass the SAVE Act with a simple majority. And I just don't think that Thune is not the kind of guy who takes risks or does anything dramatic. It's not going to happen under Thune. So it's not going to pass. It's really sad. And it's all because of Thune. He doesn't want to take risks. What he doesn't realize is this is the last chance for Republicans, because if they don't pass the SAVE Act, the integrity of elections is going to be gone forever. Because if they lose the House and the Senate, which is looking like the Republicans are going to lose the House and the Senate because of the shift in the Hispanic vote in the polling, they're dead meat. This is an act that you have to do. Thune does not have the vision or the bravery to do it. He is not a great leader. He's a follower. That's why he became majority leader.
What do you think of the Democrats' argument that they formulated against the SAVE Act, which is that married women would be disenfranchised because of their birth certificate and married name?
Yeah. Well, Democrats have redefined stupid with a D at the beginning and at the end. And the problem is that their arguments are just silly. But with a mainstream media that is complicit in stupidity, it may sell. You know, we have a lot of stupid voters, and we have a lot of stupid non-voters. And I hope the stupid ones are mostly non-voters, because then we at least have some security. But it's really the arguments that the Democrats are making are just pathetic, and everybody knows it. But they have no shame, so they don't care.
So I have a question for you about all of the redistricting that's happening in Maryland and Virginia. And I don't make the big bucks. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know things. Here's my question as a normie. Why is the national GOP not waging a nationwide effort to fight these redistricting efforts? Why is this? We've interviewed so many local leaders like Jason Miyares in Virginia. Why are these local people in Virginia and Maryland fighting this battle that I think should be fought by like national law firms and the national GOP apparatus?
Well, let's remember, this was President Trump's idea. Remember, he started this fight. So where's his Republican National Committee? They are AWOL. They've been AWOL for months. They are practically non-existent. This is quite embarrassing. Your point is well taken, Bethany. I don't know where they are, and I don't know what they think they're doing. What are they saving their money for?
Yeah, I mean, if not this, then what's the point?
Right.
Well, they're going to lose. They're going to lose the House.
Joe DiGenova is our guest. As the redistricting efforts continue in Virginia and in Maryland, do they pretty much just rely on the state Supreme Courts at this point to engage in those fights? And what leeway do those states have?
The United States Supreme Court is out of it. They've made it very clear that absent very unusual circumstances, which are not going to exist in any of these states, because if they don't exist in California and Virginia, then they don't exist. It's up to the state Supreme Court. And those state Supreme Courts are really very important, and they've become lefter and lefter as we've gone on, because the Democrats have played a very smart game, along with the left-wing nonprofits, to go after local elected officials like secretaries of state, Supreme Court justices. We've seen this big fight in Wisconsin, for example, over the Supreme Court. And it's the state Supreme Courts are the last bastion, because the U.S. Supreme Court says we're not getting involved in these. Mm-hmm. And that's bad news for Republicans, because most of these state Supreme Courts are left-wing.
Joe, I'd love for your thoughts on this latest dump of Epstein emails. I saw somebody, mentioning the fact that Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie took to the floor of the House, protected by the speech and debate clause, of course, named names of people who had nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. Their names were in the files because they were involved in a police lineup. But this is part of the danger. Somebody noted that there's a reason why raw data and files from investigations are not just dumped out to the public if no charges were brought. I would love for you to sort of give us your overview here of all of the information that we've learned so far on these Epstein documents, and whether there is, setting aside the people who probably shouldn't have their names connected to Jeffrey Epstein just because they happen to be in those files. There are some pretty nefarious things like Reid Hoffman, Bill Gates, and even Steve Bannon. It has a remarkable exchange for many years with this man.
Well, I think the most important thing is I've always been concerned about only one thing, and that's the victims. Did they receive compensation? His estate, Epstein's estate, was about $665 million. A lot of that, about $200 million, has gone to estate taxes and state and local taxes and foreign taxes. The victims have received well over $155 million. There was originally a closed window, but the trustees have ignored that, and they are continuing to pay victims who come forward with legitimate claims, which I think is a very good thing. Other than that, the paying of the victims, their just compensation, I think it's an absolute outrage that Congress passed a law overriding grand jury secrecy. Congress is going to rue the day that it did this, because it will be done again. It will be done in a scandal where people don't like the result, and they're going to want to have all the grand jury records out so they can make a judgment. What's going to happen is the Supreme Court is going to have to eventually rule on whether or not people who suffer the violation of their privacy, they go into a grand jury, give testimony, being told that it's private unless it's used in a court of law, and then they get their names smeared like Massie and Ro Khanna have done. The Supreme Court may have to rule whether or not those people have a right of action against the state, not against the people who publish it, but against the state for damages. And I think people who have been harmed by the Epstein disclosures do have a cause of action against the United States, even though a law was passed allowing this disclosure, because Congress cannot deny people due process, and the people who are named had no due process in this. And by the way, talk about two idiots, Massie and Ro Khanna. Ro Khanna is the biggest phony I've ever seen in my life. Every time I see him on television, I want to retch. And Massie is just an idiot.
Well, that compels us to keep you for a little bit longer, Joe. As we reach the point where we get you worked up on something, and then we can't let you go. So stay with us. Quick minute here to check on traffic. It's light because it's a holiday, 7:15. We continue with Joe DiGenova, who wants to retch because of Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie and their insistence on getting the Epstein information out. The struggle here, Joe, is that it does seem like there were some very rich and very powerful people who had very direct connections with Jeffrey Epstein, even after knowing what he had been involved in. There seems to be very cryptic messages between many of those people, and it seems like Jeffrey Epstein appeared to be protected in some way, that because of those rich and powerful people, he got away with some pretty horrific crimes, and some other people may have very well gotten away with crime. So what do we do there? And is it wrong for the American people through their representatives to say, we want transparency. We want to know exactly what the government knows and why they didn't bring charges?
Well, what's very interesting is that with all of this information that's been released, there is not one single piece of evidence that any of those people who were disclosed without their consent committed a crime, which is the only reason that you would disclose this information is to charge somebody with a crime. The public does not have a prurient interest in the private lives of people. Jeffrey Epstein, we had federal authorities investigate him, state authorities in Florida back in 2008. People may not have liked the result down in Florida then, but the truth is the victims then would not come forward and testify. The U.S. attorney's hands were tied down there. I've been very critical of the guy who was the U.S. attorney in Florida. As I've learned more about it, it appears that there was a huge refusal of victims to testify. They were fearful, and the federal government probably did not do a very good job of handling them. Times have changed. We know how to handle victims of sexual assault. But as far as these recent disclosures, I could care less about any of this stuff. I don't think the public has a right to know everything about everybody just because they're a public figure. And this is disgraceful what Congress did. Shame on them.
All right, so I want to shift gears to other shameful things like the Poop-tomac, the Poopy Potomac. I asked you before, where was the national GOP and the Trump administration, or the Trump folks on redistricting? And I have the same question about what's happening in Potomac. Obviously, we are led by people who are incapable of leadership here in the D.C., Maryland area. Is it possible for President Trump to declare a national emergency and get FEMA and get the National Guard in to fix this sewage disaster so that it doesn't go on for 9 more months?
Well, here's the most important thing. We have something called the EPA, and it's run by a very aggressive, smart guy named Lee Zeldin, who is all over the world and all over the map on regulatory issues. What could be a more important regulatory issue than the fouling of the Potomac River, the tributaries, and the Chesapeake Bay? This is an environmental disaster, and if the Washington Post hadn't died in dumbness, they'd be covering it, except they're all stupid. And that clown from local WRC, what a moron that reporter is. Well, we can't smell anything. Well, it's frozen, you idiot. The bottom line is, where is Lee Zeldin? Why haven't they called in the Army Corps of Engineers and said, take it over? The president, I can assure you, has gigantic power over the federal district, which includes the Potomac and all of the systems involved. He could do a lot of things. I think he's a little busy, but somebody on his staff ought to be getting Zeldin to take the lead on this and be his face.
Mm-hmm. And be a hero.
Yeah.
Yes.
We also have a government shutdown right now, Joe, or at least a partial one of the Department of Homeland Security. Democrats made demands for what they will only accept and then release funding for the Department of Homeland Security. It all has to do with ICE. It has to do with Senator around ICE needing a judicial warrant to go and apprehend someone who has a deportation order or has committed a crime while in this nation illegally. That, of course, would well, you tell me, Joe, it sounds like that would completely upend the enforcement of immigration laws and keep anything from actually happening, because a judicial warrant is very different than that of an administrative court from an immigration judge.
Yeah, well, the Democrats who enacted all these laws, while they had control of Congress for many years, over a 60-year period, now all of a sudden don't like the laws that they've enacted because they want all these illegal immigrants to become voters, either through a proper process or through chicanery. The notion that you want a judicial warrant to take somebody into custody for immigration means you would end immigration enforcement, because the courts could not handle all of the warrants for this. And the Democrats know that. This is a plan that they have to completely destroy immigration control, border control, and everything else. the farce of Joe Biden's border policy was a purposeful national policy to bring in literally millions of illegal aliens to eventually become voters, illegal voters or legal voters, however it happened. That's what this is about, and the Democrats' position is ludicrous. The Republicans, assuming they're have a little bit more cojones than they usually do, should simply say, "Fine, shut it down. We're not going to give you what you want. You're not getting warrants. You're not getting judicial warrants, and ICE is not going to be taking off masks and any other stupid thing."
Yeah. And real fast on that, because as the former U.S. attorney, you know that in some cases, law enforcement do have to conceal their identity when they're dealing with the mafia, when they're dealing with gangs, and certainly when they're dealing with this well-organized, well-funded opposition, this resistance that is tagging all of them and putting them on social media as they're doing their job. Is there something untoward or something fascist for law enforcement at the federal level to try to conceal their identity because of these dangers?
No, not at all. In fact, it's common sense to conceal the identities of federal law enforcement officials. It's been done since the beginning of the Republic. And by the way, these groups that are organized trying to out ICE agents and border control agents, those people, that should be part of a federal grand jury investigation. There's all sorts of things. They're denying the civil rights of those agents. That should be a conspiracy. I'm sure that Harmeet Dillon is thinking about this. She's very aggressive. She likes to be creative in this area. I'm sure she has on her calendar some sort of federal grand jury to investigate all these outings that are occurring across the country. And they're occurring, by the way, with the support of these left-wing nonprofits. George Soros, by the way, he will go down in history as the single most effective person for changing government in the United States at every level. He's a hateful person, but he should be given his due, which is name me the conservative that has copied him to assist us in our fight. Doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist. More's the pity. Joe DIGENOVA, always good to talk with you and get us going on a holiday here. Now, relax.
Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday to me.
Oh, is today your birthday?
No, the 22nd.
Oh, that's right. You already said George Washington's birthday. All right. Well, then we'll talk to you the day after your birthday next week.
Very good.
Thank you, Joe. 724.
Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
737. It's O'Connor and Company. It's Larry and Bethany. And coming up at 8:05, we've got Jonathan Alexander, Legislative Counsel from Maryland Family Institute. By the way, as always, Monday through Wednesday, we are missing our dear friend Julie Gunlock, who is still on the road to recovery from a health scare that she had several weeks ago. She's always on our mind and always in our prayers. And if you would like to join that prayer army for our beloved sister, Julie Gunlock, please go to getsendgo.com/Julie Gunlock. Get information there. And you can join the prayer army, as those prayers are helping. I promise you. That's givesendgo.com/Julie Gunlock. And she'll be back as soon as she's able. Once again, Larry O'Connor with Bethany Mandel. Good morning, Bethany.
Good morning, Larry O'Connor. What a thrill to be here with you today.
We love having you. We do. And we also love your biting commentary on politicians who are absolutely shameless and get away with it. Which brings us to Barack Obama. Barack Obama sat for an interview with this odious left-wing podcaster individual who I think he used to be a producer for Morning Joe. This Brian Tyler Cohen, is that his name? Or Brian? Do you know who I'm talking about?
No clue.
Yeah, all right. Brian Tyler Cohen, that's his name. He's got a podcast, of course, with some pretty shabby lighting. I have to say the former president did not look good. It's sort of a sweat act. He had the glossy forehead thing going on, which sort of accentuated the fact that he was lying through his teeth. Take a listen to this one. We'll start here with cut 10.
When I was president of the United States, I suppose I could have simply unilaterally ordered the military to, go into some red state and harass and intimidate a governor there, or cut off funding for states that didn't vote for me. I could have exercised that prerogative, but that is contrary to how I think our democracy is supposed to work. And I think we shouldn't get discouraged by the fact that we have a tougher job. We should what we should do is expect that our side is smart enough to figure it out.
Okay, so a couple of things here. First of all, the suggestion there is that Trump has ordered the military to go into some states and harass and intimidate governors and cut off funding because they didn't vote for them. He didn't exactly say that, but he suggested it, which, of course, is not what has happened here. The National Guard has been called into certain states to help with the out-of-control crime. And in places like D.C., it's been an incredible, phenomenal success because the local politicians were smart enough to take the help. Same with Memphis, Tennessee. But even worse, did I miss something? Didn't he sue nuns for not paying for abortions?
I am so glad that you mentioned this because there is a level of shamelessness that only President Obama possesses. And honestly, if you can be really agnostic about it, you almost have to be proud of him.
I suppose if you can step away from it and just marvel at the sheer audacity of this, but it is infuriating. In fact, this one's even worse. You remember what things were like during the Obama administration in terms of, if you dared to criticize Barack Obama over his policies, you were a white supremacist, right? You were absolute. The only reason you could possibly have any disagreement with Barack Obama is because you hate black people. So now listen to this, cut 11.
The other side does the mean, angry,
demagoguery,
exclusive, us, them.
The other side.
Divisive politics. That's their home court.
Yeah.
Our court is coming together. Our court is a great example. Wasn't political. Bad Bunny's halftime show.
I knew you were going to say that. Yeah.
Well, it resonated. It was smart because it wasn't preaching. It was showing. It was demonstrating and displaying. This is what a community is.
First, the fact that he was using the phrase "the other side" conjoined in the same sentence with are divisive. I think when you're referring to your fellow Americans who have a different political perspective as the other side, you are by definition being divisive. I mean, because that's dividing into sides, is it not? So,
yes.
Again, the gaslighting is...
The other side are the bad guys.
Yes.
They are divisive. We are the good guys. Can you imagine having so little self-awareness that you can utter all of those things and not recognize how absurd it is, how unself-aware you are? That I mean, this is what did Hillary Clinton call them? The deplorables. The
deplorables, the basket of deplorables. But the other side is divisive. You're right. It's either self-awareness or it's very much the awareness of who the media is and the fact that he will never be called on this. He has never been held accountable for his language or his behavior or his lies for that matter. And that brings us to his description of the rogue ICE agents. And by the way, let's not forget, Barack Obama bragged about being the deporter-in-chief. And who was responsible for those deportations under Barack Obama? I believe it was ICE. The only reason that ICE is different right now versus when Barack Obama was president is that you've got a camera lens on them and you've got the resistance force out in the street. But we'll get to this in a minute because there's that much more, and I don't want to go too far over our clock here. Let's stay on it. It is more of Barack Obama and absolutely outrageous lies that he gets away with in a moment. It's 7:43. By the way, another tell here from Obama. The other side is divisive and nasty, but we're all about coming together. Perfect example, Bad Bunny. Okay, first of all, he's admitting that Bad Bunny is on his side and his performance was in fact political. It was just a softer touch on how he did it. But also, let's not forget what that show was. It celebrated the flags and origins of foreign countries, not American countries. If you look at the Turning Point USA halftime show, it was actually all about loving America. America. But again, isn't there something divisive about Americans celebrating foreign countries and foreign flags instead of actually uniting behind? He just said we're about coming together. That wasn't about coming together. It was about showing our differences and defining us based on our foreign identity instead of our common American identity. I mean, where's the journalist leaning forward and saying, excuse me, Mr. President, how is that coming together? But thanks for admitting at least that Bad Bunny's performance was in fact political.
So I think that this is a good preview to Marco Rubio's speech in Munich, because all of this reminds me of President Obama's speech in Cairo. Yeah. That we should apologize. We have so much to apologize for as Americans. We should feel shame as Americans. I feel no shame.
Yeah,
I feel
Rubio,
great.
Not so much with the apology tour. That ain't happening. Okay, then he talked about the rogue ICE agents. Let's try to get to that.
So the rogue behavior of agents of the federal government is deeply concerning and dangerous. But we should take a moment to appreciate the extraordinary outpouring of organizing, community building, decency, citizens saying this is not the America we believe in. And
hold on.
Fight back.
So what we're seeing from the obstructors and the resistance is decency and community building. Well, he is a community organizer, so this is what he knows. I keep saying this. This is the community organizing of America. That's what Obama oversaw. He has created this new divisiveness, forcing people, compelling people, inspiring people, and rewarding people for getting out there and getting in people's faces like this.
Yeah. I am flabbergasted by just how much he told himself and just how much he told on himself and how much he revealed about himself. Not that we didn't know this after 8 years. We knew what we were getting. But golly.
The fact that he's still this shameless about it.
And unself-aware.
Unself-aware.
This could explain his marriage issues that we all also know about.
And the media will see this. You will see people in the media, like I'm sure Joe and Mika this morning are like, oh, God, we just miss having such a decent and non-political, non-partisan unifying force like Barack Obama. And it's like, I'm sorry, we're not looking at the same thing. But then there was this. Take a listen to cut 16, and then, well, you'll react.
Are aliens real?
They're real, but I haven't seen them, and they're not being kept in what is it?
Area 51.
Area 51. There's no underground facility, unless there's this enormous conspiracy, and they hid it from the President of the United States.
What was the first question you wanted answered when you became president?
Where are the aliens?
Where are the aliens?
Okay. All right. How do you, as the interviewer, not dig deeper? He says with so much certainty, yes, they exist. Why do you think that, Mr. President?
What do you know?
What did you see? Instead, it's like, oh, what did you want to learn the first? No. Right. Hit the rewind button. Your question is a follow-up.
Thank you.
Come on.
Instead, he's like, but they're not at Area 51. Well, then where are they?
Where are they?
How are you
How
so
do you
certain?
Know?
How do you
what
know?
What did you see?
What were you told? How do you know? Because, well, that person is not a journalist. He's a podcaster. It's 7:54.